Hey everyone, welcome back. Here we are with Marilyn Langevin, and we are going to be talking to her about herself, her work, her life. If you wanted to start just by telling us about yourself.
Right. Well, I think when I talk about my art, that really tells my story in these last couple of years since I've started in art. And I think probably the most important things about who I was before was I was a speech language pathologist. I worked with people who stutter. It was a loved career. And in 2016, I left that work in a focused way and got into the University of Alberta, into the art program. And this is history. The rest is history, I guess. So the transition into art was something I absolutely did not ever think was going to be part of my life. I didn't do art. I didn't make art. In about 2011 or so, my husband gave me as a gift some art classes. And I went to the art class thinking that it was going to start out with talking and lecture and whatnot, and that is not what happened. Within 20 minutes, I was putting paint on a canvas. So the image had been traced, and I absolutely did not know how to draw. So traced the image, and there I was. The instructor said, here's some paint, use these colors. I'll show you how to put the paint on. She did that, and honestly, within 20 minutes, it was like I had this brain change. And I just liken it to a bath. You know, when you get into that bath and you just go, oh, like that, that's what my brain did. It was just like, oh. And so for the next couple of years, I was working as a speech pathologist, and I would go to these art classes in the evening, and really literally it was just a bath, a warm, and it gave my brain a break. But at that point, I never ever thought that I was going to carry on and make a career of it. It was a hobby at that point. And then, as I said, in 2016, I left speech pathology and got into the program at the University of Alberta. And I just started. And it was a journey that I could never ever have envisioned, imagined. I was going to be a speech pathologist for the rest of my life, and then I was going to retire, I thought. And I thought maybe I would take up painting because my mother started to paint at about 72.
Wow.
So
I too late to start.
Yeah, I know. So I thought that was going to be my journey, but it's quite different than I thought it was going to be.
Based on the amount of artwork we see here and in your garage, yeah, it does seem very different than a speech pathologist who casually paints in retirement.
Yeah.
But so that moment in the art class where your brain bath moment was kind of the catalyst for art as a hobby. And what was it? Was it just when you started at the University of Alberta that was, I can do this as a career, or what was that moment?
Yeah, really the moment I got my acceptance into the U of A, that was the moment of, I'm going to have another career. And there has never been a moment where I thought I was just going to do art as a hobby. From that moment on, it was, I'm going to have a vibrant practice, and I'm going to sell lots of art. I'm going to have lots of exhibitions.
I love it.
Yeah, so it's been an amazing, exciting journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we've seen, and we'll see it in more detail when we go through all the artwork, but there's a lot of different mediums that you have of art going on. What did you start off with, and what are you working with now?
Right, so I actually started off with paint, in those painting classes. This is the very first painting I did, and this was the one where I traced it and she gave me the paint. And I mean, I didn't even really know that I was following light. And it was only after I got into university and started learning a lot more that I realized in retrospect, I was just trying to follow the light on the rose. And I didn't know that at the time. And then...
That's beautiful.
Thank you. And then, so I really thought that I was going to be a painter, solely. And then I took an evening course at the U of A Extension, and they asked us to take something that was precious to us or that we liked and render it however we wanted to. And these are my beautiful red shoes that I bought in Argentina. And I wore them, and I absolutely love them. So I just got my husband to take photographs of me walking down the stairs with them. And this was, the sort of the next major turning point. I think at this point is the time at which I thought, well, I'm going to see if I can get into the art program at the U of A. And so then, once I got into the art program, we initially had design, where I met a lot of people. And what's interesting is in that first year, it was a fundamentals year. Some people went into design and some people went into art. And it was kind of interesting to me that I thought I was going to go into design, really, after having that experience. Because I do like design and I like very sleek lines. And I thought, ooh, that's where I'm going to end up, which, I hadn't thought in September. But that is not where I ended up at all. And so it's kind of interesting because some people just really go over to design, and some people, like me, just go right into the arts. And that's what happened. Then in second year, I think, I was introduced to sculpture, and my mind just went, oh, wow. Because I used to sew a lot when I was young, and I had a mannequin, and I actually tried to get rid of that mannequin, but nobody wanted it. So it lived in my friend's garage and my friend's attic, and then it came back to me when we got our space here, actually. And anyway, so one morning I was laying in bed thinking, okay, what am I going to do in sculpture today? It was kind of getting toward the end of that term, and I just thought, my mannequin, I'm going to make a paper dress. And I want it to be very transparent and translucent, kind of. So I'm going to use tracing paper. So I actually, yes, I made a dress. I used tracing paper and gel medium. And there are photographs of it, I think, on Instagram. Anyway, and that was my first, major piece of sculpture. And she was beautiful, really. And the light flows through her, and she lives in the garage. She gets a little mangled, and I just fix her up. And so sculpture really just blew my mind, and I love it. And I think it's a lot easier for me than painting, because I think because I sewed, and I know the body in terms of making dresses anyway. And but I still like that feeling of the brush with the paint. And I was thinking about as I was thinking about talking with you, I was thinking about how I keep wanting to get back to painting in a very focused way, and how I think I need to think about the relationship of me and that brush and the medium, or me and whatever, even if I use my fingers, and the medium of the paint, because that paint, I now understand, has its own characteristics and its own flow, and the different kinds of paints. And I never, when I was doing these first paintings, it was just more this movement and this brain bath thing. But now I understand that it doesn't matter what medium you work with, it has its own characteristics and kind of its limits, I guess, about what it wants you to do with it. And it's kind of a cajoling. Does that make sense?
Yes. It's kind of like in people, we're all people, yes, but you have to get to know the individual and what they have to offer and what they can and can't do. And same thing with paints, like acrylic is different than watercolor, which is different than, I've run out of, thank you, oil. I was like, those are the only two paint kinds I know. But yeah, they're completely different. And the work speaks, in my opinion. I don't actually paint, so I don't know. But I feel like the work also speaks in a different way, like acrylic versus watercolor. Like everything that's shown and demonstrated is different.
Yeah.
And so understanding those characteristics and understanding what those paint types can do can help you create the, I don't want to say best because that's evaluative, but create maybe the most impactful work for yourself.
Right, and it's the most impactful for maybe the story you want to tell at that moment, or even the story you don't know what you want to tell at that moment. You know, because there's this interaction always, you know, start out with an idea and it just has its own life, and then the medium kind of works sometimes. Well, it works, or it does, sometimes it doesn't work. Yeah, so I just wanted to show you this in terms of that process and the medium and how it takes on a life of its own. So this initially was a screen print, and you can hardly see much of that screen print, but this screen print was of a stereotaxic equipment that is used to stabilize the head during an operation to implant some electrodes that help to stimulate the brain for people who have Parkinson's.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was looking at images of this stereotactic equipment, and I wanted to do something around recovery, disease, pathologies, and that kind of thing. So anyway, the screen print I made had images of the stereotactic equipment, and it's right about here, kind of. And then, you know, I just put them away. And then after a while, I was thinking about them. You know, they're not finished pieces, but they're on beautiful paper, and they represent something that was, you know, very important to me at that moment and still. But what could I do with them? So I pulled out the piece of, you know, the print on this beautiful rag type paper, and I thought, well, what can I do with it? And I was showing my a classmate, and he said, well, this kind of looks like a bird. And I thought, a bird? Oh, okay. And then it just, the thoughts just started going. And that's also the beauty of collaboration. I mean, this was not a collaboration, but it was just, you know, giving me some ideas and whatnot. So it was a form of collaboration. And, you know, the beauty of working with other people. So anyway, I just started to work with it. Like, I think it was probably 8 o'clock at night, and it was due the next day. And I had bought some encaustic wax, and I was thinking, oh, I might work with, you know, with wax a bit. Anyway, I had the kitchen in the apartment where we lived just full of all of these materials. I had paint, I had encaustic, acrylic paint, and I had dabber things. And honestly, by 2 in the morning, I thought, I'm quitting. I am so quitting. So I took it to school the next day and hung it up. And I love Leonard Cohen. And I had been listening to Bird on the Wire. And you know, I looked and I thought, I made Bird on a Wire.
Unintentionally.
Unintentionally,
that's
yeah.
So funny.
Yeah, and that's what I love about the process of making. And sometimes, you know, it tells a story of you in different ways, and it's so unintentional at times, and then sometimes it's very intentional. So anyway, this is called Bird on a Wire, and it's an ode to Leonard Cohen. And I have a little line from the song in there. So yeah, it's a multiple mediums.
Yeah, all in one. Wow.
Yeah. So
amazing. And sorry, what year was this? Because I know you said it was a school project.
This was probably about 2017 or 18. You know, they kind of all blend, maybe 2018. Yes, it would have been, because it was one of my last painting classes. And it was my second last year, yeah. I can tell you, I was quitting that night. I was so done.
But you didn't, you know? What was it like? Sorry. What was it that kept you from quitting? You know, because, you know, you get really frustrated and you're like, oh, I'm not going to do this. I quit. And we all kind of have those moments. But what was it that you were like, actually, I'm not going to?
Yeah. Well, I do think that being in a registered program helped. And that just valuing the instruction I was getting. And, you know, the same with the relationship between a classmate and an instructor. You know, you develop this relationship, and I really valued their feedback, and I valued the support. And I guess, you know, it was a moment of deep frustration, as you say, and yet at the same time knowing that that's part of life. And there was, I don't ever quit things usually. It's not very often I've had to suffer through something to the end, but very rarely, because I think I have been fortunate in that, you know, I've been able to cue into my passion and follow that. And that was one of the questions that you were going to ask, I think.
Yeah, probably. Sorry, sometimes I go off. I go off the list.
Yeah, you know, about I think one of about anyway, it came from, you know, following your passion.
Yeah.
And finding that. So I've been fortunate in my life to be able to have done that. Not everybody can. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So probably my passion, value of instruction, instructors, knowing that I don't often quit things.
Would you have any advice for maybe any aspiring artists who might be going through a tougher time, or might be going through that, oh my gosh, I can't do this, I'm going to quit kind of moment?
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, following and cueing into your passion, no matter what you do in life, is really important, because then you can move mountains. If you really firmly believe in something, you can move mountains to make things happen. And obstacles come in all the time. And so, you know, figuring out how to pick your boots up when you're down like that, and you need to keep going. And sometimes you need space. And I think that's really important. Sometimes you just need to just walk away from it, you know, for a couple of hours, a day, 2 days, a month, maybe even, you know, half a year. People do that. Writers do that. People of all persuasions take breaks from their work when it just, you know, gets to maybe a stalemate place or something like that. So, you know, my advice would be to follow your passion, follow your heart, and, you know, if you need to take a break, do it. Because if it's your passion, you'll come back to it. And even distraction can help. You know, like, start to do something else for a bit, and then you'll just get back, I think.
Yeah. It's hard, I think. I'm not, what was the word? Like visually artistic. Like I can't make anything like this, but I do like writing and acting work. Mm-hmm. And it's just funny hearing you say that, because I know you're right. I just also have been in the moment where I'm like, I have to do this. This is the deadline or something like that. But as soon as I do take that break and find a distraction, or, you know, even like call a friend or like send a text message and have that release of, I don't know, pent up frustration, you know, and then being able to step away and come back. And even I find the work that I do is so much stronger after giving myself the break. It's just so hard to accept the fact that I need a break at times.
Do you know, Bridget, I think that is really, really important. So in my speech pathology career, when I was doing research and writing, I would sit myself down at that computer, and I had to just keep going, keep going, keep going. My arms would be hurting, but I had to keep going. Art has actually helped me with that writing process, because I still do some writing. I'm still trying to finish up some research projects. But the process, I think art has taught me about process more than finishing the product. And maybe that's similar to what you experience.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. That's so funny thinking about it that way, actually, because it's never the finished product for myself at least, that I figure out the process. Like when people, I find artists talk a lot about process and how you do things and all that. And I think I still don't fully understand my process. But finishing the product is never the process, and like learning about the process and figuring out what it is that works and doesn't work. It's always like the breaks in between and kind of the mishmash of everything that happens. But then it's like weird, because you would think that the product is like what shows that process and shows all the work that went into it, but really it's everything that happened along the way.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. And there was an artist, his name is Kentridge. I think he's from South Africa. I might be wrong. But anyway, he said that art is in the process of making. And when I heard that, that was when the light went on for me, because when I got into art, very much it's about making a product, you know, an object. Whereas now it's about process. And I mean, it can be darn frustrating, as we know, but it's kind of the mishmash of life, you know, that you can have in your hands or in your mind or in your body when you're acting. I knew that I was Métis when I was younger, and I knew that my mom went to residential school, but it was kind of like a story. It wasn't my life, you know. And there were indicators of, you know, our Indigenous ancestors and the kind of life that they led through my life. But, you know, I think when you think about identity and who you are, there's so much that we learn from our parents. There's so much that we bring forward that we maybe aren't aware of. And that's what I started to become aware of, was, you know, why do you act a certain way? Why do you say certain things? Why are you attracted to something when maybe your life around you doesn't really make sense for being attracted to that thing? It could be dance, it could be an object, it could be a way of talking, it could be, you know, any kind of form of expression. So anyway, when I got into art school, the application, the last line was, and I will be interested to see if my Indigenous heritage comes out in my art. Because prior to that, it was just all about, you know, painting landscape and this, that, and the other. In between my starting to do some of the sculpture Undaunted, when I came back from Italy, I think after that, the story of the children found in the Kamloops, at the Kamloops Residential School, broke. And that was the moment, oh, I have goosebumps, gosh. That was the moment that I realized, wow, my mother went to residential school. I never for a second thought before that maybe my mom wouldn't have come back from residential school. And I never ever thought for a moment, I didn't know how grandma felt when she, you know, when they had to send my mom to residential school, 200 kilometers upriver from where they lived. So that was the moment where, you know, kind of like the knife went in, and I just thought, whoa, this is not a story. This is my mother's life. This is what I have inherited. You know, there's parts of her life that are encoded in my DNA. And not just her life, my grandmother's life, and the life of Métis people, and the life of Indigenous people. So anyway, with that kind of rolling around in my head and whatnot, I started to do some pieces, and this was the first one. This was a screen print, and it's called Spirit Child, and this is an image of epithelial cells from the womb. And so I put that on her face, and then these letters are syllabic. They're syllabics, and they're from a prayer that my grandmother wrote for me when I was 12 years old. I'll come back to that. And then yeah, so I put this kind of collage together, and this was one of the screen prints I did in screen printing. And that probably was the best work in that screen printing class. Yeah. So then I started to think a bit more about grandma and what happened. And I was just standing in my workspace, and I saw my loved blue shawl that I bought in Europe many years ago, and that I've worn it to just shreds. And I actually bought two because I knew that if I lost this one, I would be heartbroken. Aww. So I have another one.
Good call. Good call.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, I saw my blue shawl laying, and I thought, oh, my shawl. Oh, I love that shawl, and I love what it represents, and it's kind of like it hugs me. And then there was this epiphany moment. I thought, my goodness, how did Grandma feel when she had to take my mom to that boat and see her little 7-year-old go off? And then I thought about the communities and the heartache and whatnot. So then I just put this piece together like in just minutes. And then I found this when I was hiking out in southern Alberta. And then, of course, I just found these feathers. And then it just all came together. So this was a process of, I hadn't planned this art piece at all, but it came together just in minutes from seeing the shawl and what it represented for me, and then finding this and, what it represented, life at one point in time and continued life, but in a different way. And then, of course, the feathers continued life in a different way. So that was that. This piece, then I did this in 2022, so I graduated in 2021, and I was contacted by a group, and they wanted to know if I would be interested in doing a mural. There was going to be 4 groups of people who were doing murals, and it was going to be put around a construction site, and it actually is still up on a construction site on 114th Street and Jasper Avenue.
Oh, wow.
So you can have a little drive-by there if you'd like to. But this was the process was, it was about home. That was their theme, and I was thinking about, well, what's home to me? Home. I spent a lot of time up in Fort McMurray. My mom's family is from the Fort McMurray area. Anyway, so, I was thinking about home in Fort McMurray and how, I learned so much about my grandmother by living there, because she lived in a suburb of Fort McMurray, really. Anyway, so as I was thinking about this mural in home, I was thinking about Alberta. I love Alberta. I have always loved Alberta. When I was a young speech pathologist, I thought another thing I would do when I retired was I was going to work for Alberta Tourism, and I was going to go around the world, and I was going to carry our little, our flags and a Canadian flag, and I was going to promote Alberta. Well, that didn't happen.
You kind of got sidetracked, but I mean, who knows?
That's right. So anyway, so I put this piece together. This is a photograph that I took of the Athabasca River in Fort McMurray, and it's stretched out a bit, and I really like that. I like the bit of the distortion. Mm-hmm. And then I worked with this image a bit more, and just changed the vibrancy a little bit more, so it's still the epithelial cells, still the syllabics from my grandmother. I used photographs of these moccasins that I made from edition probably 2 and 3 and 4 or something. Maybe edition 5 and 6, because I've got a couple of editions of that.
I'm sorry, are those paper as well?
Yes, they are.
That's amazing.
Even when you were talking about the translucent, or tracing paper for the dress and this, I rip paper by accident when I'm turning pages. That's incredible. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah. And again, it's like, I had several of these prints, and what do you do with them? And an instructor said, make something. So I thought, oh, all right, I'm going to make moccasins. I've never made moccasins before. I like paper, and I'm not quite sure what it is I like about paper, but maybe making it into things that, you know, it's not traditionally supposed to be used for. Transcending the medium. One of my instructors talked about that early on, transcending the medium. So, and I think the paper dress, or sorry, the tracing paper dress, that was transcending the medium. And I guess that was the start of some of this, you know, pushing the medium. Anyway, so I've got images of the moccasins, and then these are images of my grandniece's handprint. You know how you make the print? So it's very much various elements of home for me, and still, you know, the story. So I guess one thing that's really important is, for me anyway, is, you know, this process of working to come to understand my ancestry and what it means in my life now, you know, and that process of reconnection. And so these pieces, you know, are part of that story. They're kind of a part of who I am, I guess. So this here is a replication of my grandmother's syllabic writing. So when I was 12, I had the good fortune to think about asking Grandma to write in Cree. And she wrote this Cree prayer for me. And it says something about, dear God, take care of me all of my life. And she signs it Mary. And so I have that piece of paper that she wrote on. I had it in an album, and it's now in a very safe place with a pouch that she beaded for me, which I'll show you in a moment. And I had the good fortune to hang on to that. I did not have the good fortune to keep that little tape recording I'd made of her singing in Cree. And but anyway, 12 years old.
Yeah.
You know, you record over it if you've got this little tape recorder that I won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
12-year-old you was probably so excited.
I was. Yeah. And then, so anyway, then I started to think a little bit more about the indicators of, you know, the indigeneity in my life and whatnot. And when we were young, Mom and Dad made us a teepee to play in.
Aww.
You know, and like, I don't know. I never questioned, why would you make a teepee? I don't know. Anyway, so I found this photograph, and I just put it down on my desk and took a photograph of it. And then I just kind of liked the way the photograph looked. So, and then I started thinking, well, that teepee, that's kind of interesting. You know, because really, in those days, we had like the Sears catalog or something like that. And, you know, I really wanted those doll houses, you know, it's cut away and you can put all those people in. But we had a teepee. And I actually remember an afternoon, I was probably around 4. It was hot summer. And I went inside and I actually had my afternoon nap in there. And I remember, it's so clear. I remember waking up and, you know, kind of this like, is it the next day?
Yeah.
And that delicious sort of warm feeling. It was wonderful. So then I started playing with that. And then this piece is a collage. So I've got the teepee in the middle. And then when I was at a residential school in the interior of BC, which has actually been turned into a resort, in that they, you know, the school was made into a hotel, and I think they have a golf course and whatnot. Anyway, there's lots of photos. The important thing is there are lots of photos of children in residential school, and you can also find those on the net. And when I saw these photos of the little girls with the, you know, the bob haircut, and they all looked the same, I thought, oh my gosh, that looked like me. When I was, you know, 3 and 4 years old, especially when I was younger, I thought, oh, that looked like me. You know, I had this little haircut. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that just kind of played around in my head. And so I just put this together thinking about, you know, the ancestry, what we bring forward, and, you know, the fond memories of playing in that teepee and sort of, a self-portrait, I guess, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. When you create this art and then share it with other people, sorry, I'm trying to word this.
Yeah.
What maybe emotion or idea, like what are you trying to evoke in the audience that sees the art? Because they may never have the chance to like fully hear everything that goes into it.
Well, in the little tags I put beside the pieces, sort of the crux of the story is in there. And I think probably, I hope that these pieces evoke some emotion, and some awareness, I guess. It's probably that piece about, being a speech pathologist and helping kids learn how to speak and, helping the children who stutter learn how to manage their speaking so that they stutter less, and the teens and the adults. There's sort of this, teaching awareness part to my being, I guess, that will always be there. So I'm hoping that, that something in the art will go, oh, we'll stimulate them to go, oh, this is interesting, or, oh, get a feeling. Yeah. But it's so much the viewer, the viewer brings to the artwork whatever their life is. And I think that's something that I really had to learn, was to just tell my story, and it will resonate with some, and it won't resonate with some. And my story will change over time. And maybe later on, the work that I do will not resonate with my earlier work or the people that view it. So yeah, thanks for that.
Of course. And I think it's beautiful too, because your art, those that it does resonate with, it can impact and change their story, and then your story becomes a part of their story, and then it works its way out,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's so true. My niece told me a story about that transparent dress, the tracing paper dress. She said when she was looking at it, there was another woman who was looking at it, and that piece was called Clarion Call, and my little write-up. And so sometimes there's these moments where you receive this clarion call, and you got to go this way when you thought you were going to go that way, or you got to make a hard decision. And she said that this woman was looking at it, and if I remember correctly, the woman was thinking about not proceeding with her PhD or something like that. And somehow in that moment she thought, no, I have to. So that links back to the passion, and sometimes just, like you said, sometimes there's something that you just go, oh yeah, okay, I can do this.
And then it inspires you to continue, and then
yeah,
the rest is history.
Yeah, and when my niece told me that story, it was kind of at a moment too where, once you put your artwork out there, I mean, it's so vulnerable. It's like, here, open up and see my heart,
Yes.
see my soul. And after that exhibition, I think I was at that moment where I was feeling like, is this, a tracing paper dress? Who's going to buy a tracing paper dress? Where is this going? And that was all I needed to enthuse me again, and keep making paper dresses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because other people might need them, and that's one of the great things about art is sometimes artists are able to say things that maybe people aren't ready to accept in themselves or not comfortable saying themselves. And so having an artist kind of do it for you, it's like, oh, I'm less alone in this. Someone else feels this way or has this in their story as well.
Oh, that's beautiful, actually. I'm going to have to remember that too. At those moments where, there will be someone who this might resonate with and make a difference in their lives. Yeah. So then, this piece is called Cut Reconnection. So again, it's about this haircut, and this is my hair. And this was kind of the moment where I think in making this, I thought, I really am on my own journey of, learning about my identity, and my identity is changing. And where it's going to go, I don't know. So I printed my collaged images on cheesecloth.
Oh, wow. Why cheesecloth? Like, what was...
It's vulnerable. It's fragile. You have to be very careful with it. You have to work with it. You have to respect it. And I mean, cheesecloth has so many uses in cooking. I don't cook, so.
That's okay, you do a lot more.
My art is not cooking. And I do appreciate the people for whom cooking is their art.
Yes.
But yeah, it was just vulnerable. And hard to work with, I will say. And when I asked the printer to print on cheesecloth, they said they had never done it, and they didn't know if it would work. So that was so exciting.
But it did.
I know.
You're a trendsetter.
It was so exciting. Yeah, so a little bit more about process. So I was thinking about my mother and, bringing forward, the teepee idea again, our teepee playhouse. And I had a photograph of my mother in front of the legislature. And I don't know how old she would have been then, but a lovely young woman. And she dressed so beautifully. Oh my gosh, she's 94. And I think I mentioned she started painting at 72. Yeah. So anyway, I was just wanting to work with, sort of the idea of our legislature and all of that it stands for, and the Western European way of thinking. And then inside of this beautiful woman is this very, indigenous kind of ancestry, lifestyle, and whatnot that I didn't know about. I actually didn't know until a couple of years ago that my mother can speak Cree.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I did not know that. Yeah. So, and anyway, so I'm still working on this. It's not resolved yet. So that's why I've got some needles and thread here. But, again, it was another probably 2 a.m. in the morning. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I've got to get this done. And, the last term of school. And I started to take a photograph of it at night in the kitchen living room area. And this is the photograph that I got. And these lines, like, where did these lines come from? And what they are is there's gel on here. So if you can just go across, you can kind of feel the gel.
Oh, yeah.
And the light caught those lines, and I ended up with this. And I don't know, I just thought the mix of the serendipitous shining light and the, what my mother, her ancestry, and the Western European way of thinking, which very much represents, who I am. This, when you ask, well, tell me a bit about yourself. And I said, well, it's in my art.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an example of process. And I'm not completely happy with, this is a bit dark. So I have another print, and I might cut this out and, put in the cheesecloth image right inside there, perhaps. I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
But it will go somewhere.
Absolutely.
Sooner or later.
One day, eventually.
One day, yeah.
This is so interesting because I thought that this was like an adaptation of the original one that you had done, but just knowing that it was a happy accident, as I think that someone says that as like a happy accident.
Yeah.
That painter guy, but I can't remember. Bob Ross. That's
He
calls things happy accidents.
Yes.
But that's so cool and crazy how, because you didn't intend for that to happen, and then all of a sudden it's here and sparks another idea of, I'll do it again, but lighten this and do that, and wow, that never stops.
Yeah. And maybe even bead into it with some beadings.
Oh,
I don't know. Yeah. Thinking about this beaded pouch that my grandmother beaded for me. So I did have the good fortune to give it to my mother when I was about, I don't know, 21 or so. So Grandma had she had beaded a purse for me, and I took it to school, and I used it a lot. And then I cut it down to be a makeup pouch when I was about, I don't know, 19. And then, as I said, gave it to my mother to keep. And anyway, I'm doing this art stuff, and I kind of started thinking about, Grandma and the syllabics and the beading, and where was that pouch? And so I asked my mom, where is the pouch? Do you know where it is? And she said, well, I gave it to your sister, to Michelle. And so I went to my sister and I said, well, do you have that pouch? And she said, oh yeah, I have that pouch. Mom gave it to me. And I said, well, actually, that was my pouch. And what she said is her daughters were using it as a pattern for their learning to bead.
Oh.
Yeah. So again, the bringing it forward. Yeah. So anyway, I borrowed it, and I mean, I'm so happy that my sister had it and kept it, and her daughters, and they were using it for their beading pattern. And anyway, so I got it, and then I turned it inside out. I mean, I don't know why, but I just turned it inside, and I looked at it, and suddenly there was that moment again where it's just like, this is Grandma's hand. It's the movement of her hand. And it was sort of like, you can almost touch, but you can't, because of course she's gone. Yeah. And then I thought, it's kind of like when she's beading, or, when she's beading this is the end product, but this is the process.
Yeah.
And it's like she's writing a letter, writing a story. So I thought that was really cool. So then I thought, well, I wonder if I could replicate this on some black paper. So I did this, and then I just had it laying on the table. And I don't know why, I just decided, wonder what would happen if I just tried to take a photograph of it and moved the camera. And I did. So it was in low light. And then I got a number of images. And that's the rest of the inside. Look at that. Doesn't it just look like dancers dancing?
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I feel like the threading really gives the movement, because the beading is gorgeous, but I find it's more like still, whereas the threading is that movement of like the dance happening versus like the end pose.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's happy. It's happy. Yeah, so I got these images, and I thought, that's interesting. What can I do with them? And then I don't know how it happened, but what I did was I was playing around with color saturation, and they went to, like I took all the color out, and it was black and white, and I just thought, oh, looks like Northern Lights. And Northern Lights are kind of like the spirit. Mm-hmm. And so I got it printed on canvas, and I started beading into it.
Oh, wow. The beading is so nice. Like, this whole thing is so nice, but like the beading, I feel like just adds that extra tie-in from the original, which is just stunning. Yeah. Wow.
And it was a very intuitive process. So actually that knot is this tiny little knot up here. And just when I moved the camera, it just, pulled these threads into this image. So, and then from one of the images, I selected a section and got this one printed. And that, can you kind of see here, this here? That's like,
center.
That's the center, and this is this long thread here. Wow. So this one is still in process, and it's kind of giving, to me, this is a body, so I call this one Spirit Ascending, and it's kind of like, I don't know, spirit ascending. That's and so I was kind of trying to put some anatomy into it as well, some ribs and muscles going over top. I don't know that anyone would ever get that, but then that's exactly, you know, another part of the story is you put things in. Some people will see it, some people won't, and you you know, through your information, let them know a little bit about what your story is, or maybe you don't. Maybe you just let people, you know, respond to it whichever way they are going to. So yeah, so this work is in process.
I think it's beautiful how it started as like just a thought about the beaded pouch, you know, and then you have it, and then just even the idea of turning it inside out and how you're discussing like that's her hands and her hand movements. I just think that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, especially back in the day,
Yeah.
so much was done by like using your hands. Like we didn't have the technology back then that we have nowadays.
Yeah.
And so any items are so much more that person specifically.
Yeah.
Which is really touching. And
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. It's, yeah. When you use your hands to make something, it's more your person. And, you know.
It's like an extension of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So how fortunate am I, you know, to have had this rich ancestry. You know, Grandma was an artist. People who bead are, you know, that's their art. And I don't know that I will become, you know, a very accomplished beader, but you saw from my Magna Rose ASCII model, the beading that I did. And I think what's interesting is when I did this, I love the black and white. And some people have asked me, well, why don't you put the color in it as, you know, as in this image? And you know what? I wasn't, from a soulful point of view, ready to do that. Because, you know, I think with the celebration, this is celebration. And at the other end is the hard stuff, you know, the hard truth of history and what happened. And I think it's really important to keep in mind the history as I move to celebration. You know, and you know, the process was painful. It was painful to learn about these hard things, and so yeah, I think it's important to remember, but not let it limit you, and then to celebrate.
Absolutely. And I think too, being an artist, actually the entirety of being an artist is being really vulnerable. And so only being as vulnerable as you can while still being okay, because pushing yourself to an extent for the art might not be what you need in the moment. And so taking your time through the hard stuff and through what's painful in order to getting to a point where you can celebrate is so important.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You have encapsulated it. It was hard, and now I'm, you know, now I'm here. Yeah. So then the next part of the story is my marble sculptures. Just wanted to show you Undaunted. She's the first marble sculpture that I did, and I went to Italy to finish her off. When we go inside, I'll just show you the process about how she came to be. But I guess, essentially what happened is I had a model of her that was made out of paper. That model is up in the rafters somewhere. And the model got digitized, and then the digital information gets sent to Italy, put into a robotic arm computer. A robotic arm carved her out of a block of marble. But it carves, within to a certain, a couple millimeters of the finished product. And so then when we go there, we carve away and finish the marble and fix any errors that happen, such as, I'm just going to show you around here. So when she was digitized, the paper dress went in, but this piece came out and there was a little bit more of, it was covered up a bit more. But when it got digitized and then milled by the robotic arm, it went in quite far. So then I really had, like, it went in quite far here, but not far here. So I essentially had a hole there that I had to work with. And so I had to carve and carve and carve in. And actually what happened though, the serendipitous kind of result is that it's much more dramatic than it would have been. So, that's kind of the process of art and life, I must say. You get these things. And then in Italy, I was going to have her cut off, but one of the instructors there said, well, why don't you make the base part of the work? And so I started chipping away with chisel and hammer, and I ended up just with this kind of pillow, which didn't do her any justice. And then when she was sent home, when we got her back home, 2 summers ago, I worked on the base and got it to the stage where I'm happy with it. And so this is Undaunted.
It's beautiful. It's amazing.
She's so beautiful. You can touch her. Absolutely. Because you should. Oh, wow. Marble should be touched. Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm always so amazed that people can take such a hard, surface, marble, and create something so soft and elegant with it.
Yeah. So she's not shined up, and she won't be, because my intention was that I wanted her to kind of have a paper effect, sort of a bit ethereal and, fragile. And so she will not be shined up. This is the model for Magna Rose Aschi, who also is a marble sculptor, who is en route from Italy to Edmonton right now. And so this just gives you an example of, the models are life size. And I didn't intend for her to have a head. This one is headless, but it's an implied body. Mm-hmm. You can tell from she's walking. She's perched on the, the ledge of the precipice, or perched on the precipice. So this girl is actually looking back, and she will be part of this group of work that I'm calling the Ancestral Trilogy. And so Undaunted is the first one. Magna Rose Aschi represents the present. She's pregnant. She also has a Métis beading that I did, which is the second beading that I've done, and I'm just kind of learning how to do it. And this is a birch bark shawl, which I had been
so cool.
I had been working with earlier, and so it was a process of coming together with different elements of her. You can see her hair here is long, and she's got some braids at the back. So when you see photos of Magna Rose Aschi in process, which is on my Instagram, you'll see the hair. There's lots of work to do on it yet, but it was really challenging, I must say, because when I arrived there, this piece was not articulated. The hair wasn't articulated, so I really had to figure out how to work with that non-articulated section and make it look like hair. So even though the sculpture is milled from this block of marble by that robot, the hand of the artist is still very, very much part of the process. I had the good fortune to go to Italy for a residency, and this is Undaunted in her final form. But when I arrived, okay, so this shows the digitization of the paper dress, and you can see the digitization taking form on the screen.
Wow.
And this is the robot in Italy. It has a bit, and it goes around and around and around. It actually changes the bit itself, apparently.
Oh my goodness.
Who knew? I know, it's very smart. Yeah, very smart. And then when I got there, this here shows the mill lines and how, I would mark which ones I'm taking away, because these mill lines can be kept and can be part of the sculpture and the story that you want to tell with the sculpture. And I kept wanting to keep them because they are beautiful, but they did not go with Undaunted and the story she wants to tell. Mm-hmm. So I kept having to work away, and as I explained, there, this is the way the dress was at the back, but it was not so indented as the marble sculpture is. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I worked, and that's just a photograph of working in Italy. And so I started to use a grinder to cut away at the base. And here I'm using a pencil grinder, just this little pencil thing. And and it sounds like the dentist.
That's exactly what I was thinking when you were making that noise.
It's just like, oh.
I feel like my teeth hurt.
Yeah, and so you can imagine at the residency there was 23 of us doing this, and it's a small little town in northern Italy, and the townspeople were lovely to put up with this. Oh my gosh. And then here's me picking up hammer and chisel and just going at the base. So what was lovely about that idea to make the base part of it is, had that not been suggested to me, and had I not taken it up, I probably wouldn't have started working with hammer and chisel, because I was working with these pneumatic tools to take away all the mill lines. So then I got back, and this is my first go at starting to carve from scratch. So I had this block of marble, and these are the results.
Oh my
Wow.
I thought they were plastered in. I did not realize you could have sculpted that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So, yeah, they're actually my hands. So I made models of my hands. I can show you in a moment. And so my idea was that, with Magna Rose Askey, she actually is like this, looking back. So she is going to be looking back at Undaunted, and she's going to be looking back at Grace. And Grace is the other sculpture that is coming back from Italy. So Grace is the ancestor, and Kahawanik, I think is how, I'm still learning how to say her name in Cree. And there was a really, really good quote from an elder who said something about the grace of a woman to have a child. And where would we be if we didn't have women to have children? And I had already named her Grace. So she being the ancestor, and my finding that quote, it just kind of like, well, of course.
Yep.
Yeah.
It just worked.
It did.
Yeah.
And I have no idea. I think when I was thinking of Grace, I was thinking of my mother, and, of raising the children and all the things that a mother does. Mm-hmm. I didn't get to be a mother. So, my life has not, I've not had that privilege, challenge, pleasure. And I think that experience I think you have to have some grace. And so anyway,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, and this is just a 3D print of Undaunted. And my 3D print of Magna Rosaski is in the making right now by a young person who is still in school.
I am just constantly blown away by the amount of detail, and you were talking about like the pencil grinder, like the fine detail that goes into all of the work that we've seen by you. I love looking at art, and I never really I think I don't truthfully understand all the work that goes into it, but hearing you speak about this, like just the time and hours that go into it is just remarkable. Like, this is amazing. You're so cool.
And you know, the beauty of it is it's sort of therapeutic, you know, like almost like doing yoga or something. You know, it's I guess it builds mindfulness, maybe.
Yeah, maybe like patience and precision, I would think too.
Yeah. Do you know, so at the end of my my last year of school, I said my brain is like popcorn, because I had, I think, 3 studios or 4 studios. It was crazy. And so I was spending my whole day creating. It was like my brain was going. And I caught myself one morning trying to make coffee, and I had interrupted that process so many times because this and that. And anyway, so, you know, at the end, it was just like bing, 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 bing. And I tried to get my camera mounted so I could just follow myself and count the interruptions. Didn't work very well, but I counted 13 this last morning. And then, you know, fast forward, in May of this year, I went to, my husband and I went to Italy, and he helped me do some work, which was really lovely. He's a support team of 1, as I said. And anyway, so we were carving, I was working on Grace and Magna Rosaski. When I got back, so that was a whole month, just working, you know, doing a little bit of chiseling, but mostly just with the grinders. And when I got back, it was probably a couple of weeks later, I realized that I made my coffee without 1 interruption.
Wow.
So my mind just, it was so good for my mind.
Over 13, not 1, you know? Progress.
I know. And yeah, so it was really helpful to just have nothing else to do for a whole month, besides the normal living things, and just focus. And I guess I am even amazed at how many hours can just go at it. My feet really hurt at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot of hours of standing. Just need like an arm extension, just have a seat. And then
yeah. And there were some places where, like here, you can see here, this is detached right here.
Oh, yeah.
But when I got there, this was attached like from here down. And so it was hard for me to get in there, and that's where my husband really helped me, because he has longer hands and stronger. He could get more oomph into it. This is what happens when your model that you're carving from falls.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh, poor thing. But this one is still intact.
Oh, yay. 50% of the hands survive.
I know, yeah.
What would you say is the best piece of advice you've received throughout your life?
Right. Well, you know what? I'm going to... You know, I've had so many good teachers in my life, and my life up to art. And I was trying to think, you know, was it from that time, or was it from my art time? And I think from art, the best piece of advice that I ever got was It was actually an instructor, and he said, Marilyn, I know you know where to put things. And that was like I was waiting for some external validation, yeah. And when he said that, I think that's probably one of the most important things I learned about myself, was that I need to trust my eye. So that was really profound for me, because I think it was at that point where I started to trust my eye. And those moments where you start to distrust, because what will the viewer think, or what will, what was the first intention? So I fall back to that in those moments, just go with what comes, because usually it comes from here.
Yep.
And then, the mind will either second it or, try to get you off track maybe a little bit, but it always comes from here. And, I think
if you stick with that, you can't go wrong.
I think so. I mean, you might get yourself into trouble a little bit sometimes, but you get yourself out.
Life's more fun in trouble sometimes. It's fine.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bridget and team.
Yes.